Today, we'll talk about viruses, including how they infect cells and how our immune system fights these infections. This lesson was made by Mariah Thrush as part of Ohio University's NSF-funded Boat of Knowledge in the Science Classroom. First, what is a virus? The most controversial trait is that a virus is non-living. There are fundamental characteristics of life, and viruses do not meet all these characteristics. While viruses have internal organization of structures, reproduce, and adapt to their environment, viruses are not composed of cells and do not metabolize energy. Although conventional education has said viruses are non-living, recent studies in 2015 are now asserting that viruses are living. It's likely that this controversy will continue on for years to come. A virus is smaller than a bacteria and can be seen with a scanning electron microscope. Check out this website for an interactive comparison of sizes. In this screen capture, you can see a red blood cell is 8 micrometers wide. How wide do you think an average virus is? Pause the video now to check it out. Viruses come in different shapes. They can be simple, like spherical or helical, or more complex, such as this polyhedral shape, or as the name suggests, complex shapes. Viruses need a host in order to survive. Another way to put it, viruses need living cells in order to replicate. We'll cover these steps you see in this picture in a minute. Because viruses need a host in order to survive, viruses are considered parasites. Without a host, the virus dies or enters a hibernation-like state until it finds a host or dies. Pause this video to watch a YouTube clip of how a virus infects a cell. Notice how a single virus takes over the cell's machinery and produces many viruses, hence the parasitic nature of a virus. Now that you've seen the entire process, let's go over the steps. First, antigens, the video called them as keys, located on the outside of the virus, fit the receptors of the host cell. Once in the cell, the virus releases its DNA and enters the nucleus. In the nucleus, the viral DNA is replicated many times. Sometimes, especially large viruses will release their DNA into the cell rather than completely entering the cell. With all the DNA replicated, new viruses are constructed within the cell. Once constructed, the newly assembled viruses are either released from the cell, as this picture shows, or they rupture the entire cell and burst out. Here's another schematic of viral infection. Let's go over the steps again. The virus antigens match the antigen receptors of the cell. The virus enters the cell and then the cell's nucleus. Remember, some viruses don't completely enter the cell, but instead only send in the DNA. Viral DNA replicates in the cell nucleus. The newly replicated DNA is assembled into new viruses. The viruses are then released from the cell to start over the cycle of infecting another cell. So if viruses replicate so quickly and easily, how are we still alive? How do we survive viral infections? Our immune system and the process of the specific immune response help us to fight back the viruses trying to infect our cells. Let's talk about the players in this immune response. First up, the macrophage. This cell finds and engulfs any foreign objects in the body, including viruses. The macrophage will display the antigens from the virus for our next player in the system, the helper T cell. This cell reads the information in the antigens from the macrophage and delivers the information to the B and T cells. These cells look for viruses and kill them. It's important to distinguish that while macrophages and B and T cells kill foreign objects, B and T cells are targeting only the viruses or bacteria that it receives information about from the helper T cell. The regular B and T cells don't last very long in your system, but they do leave lookouts. These memory B and T cells hang around in your body for weeks and to years, looking for the specific virus or bacteria that it has information on. So now that you know all the players, pause the video and walk yourself through this diagram. Talk with classmates to make sure you understand the roles of all the types of cells. Vaccines take advantage of the specific immune response. Vaccines contain weakened virus particles or antigens. These antigens cause the immune system to create memory B cells. If the actual virus enters the vaccinated person's body, the memory cells move into action and mount an immune response to the infection. Herd immunity, or community immunity, is an important aspect of human health and a big reason for widespread vaccination. The NIH defines herd immunity as when a critical portion of the community is immunized against a contagious disease. Most members, including non-vaccinated members of the community, are protected against that disease because there is little opportunity for an outbreak. In other words, the more people that are vaccinated, the less risk there is of anyone getting the contagious disease and becoming infectious. The extent of herd immunity depends on the proportion of vaccinated members in a group. For example, if no one is vaccinated, then contagious disease is quickly spread through all of the community with very few people remaining uninfected. This is how the cold or Ebola works. If a low proportion of the community is vaccinated, then we end up with the same result as before. Most people become infected and the disease still spreads. The situation changes when the majority of the community is vaccinated. In this case, the contagious disease and the viruses that cause the disease cannot successfully infect vaccinated individuals, so the disease doesn't spread through the community. Individuals that aren't vaccinated, such as infants and people allergic to a specific vaccine, are less likely to get the disease since it can't easily spread from person to person. Let's review what we covered. A virus is a non-living parasite that is smaller than most bacteria. Because it's a parasite, it relies on a host for reproduction and survival. A virus reproduces by entering the cell's nucleus, replicating viral DNA, assembling the parts made by the replicated DNA, then leaving the cell. The specific immune response is an integrated immune response to fight infections. Vaccines take advantage of the immune response by injecting weakened virus particles into the body to simulate an immune response and create memory B cells. Herd immunity is the phenomenon of protecting unvaccinated individuals, but only if the majority of the community is vaccinated. To further demonstrate how herd immunity works, complete the herd immunity activity found in this lesson plan.